The Smith & Wesson SD40 VE is the most high quality, most reliable pistol I have ever touched. It is the easiest pistol to be accurate with due to the low recoil of the Smith & Wesson 40 caliber round. And I have decided to sell all my other pistols, every single one of them, and buy only SD40 VEs because they are such a great pistol. Wrong, wrong, wrong. However, if you look at a number of reviews online on YouTube right now, you'll find people saying something very similar to what I just stated. And it's wrong. It's just simply wrong. The Smith & Wesson SD40 VE is a decent quality pistol. The SD stands for self-defense, and the VE, whether you're getting the 40 version or the 9 version, stands for value enhanced. But I have not found that the Smith & Wesson SD40 VE is as high quality, as durable, as reliable as the pistols which I own that are in the $500 and $600 range. Smith & Wesson's goal with this pistol is to provide a relatively good handgun at a very affordable price. That's the value enhanced. That's the point of this gun. And that's going to come at a cost to you. So you're going to save money, but you're also going to get a lower quality product. And people do not seem to get this. There are people out there that saying this gun is better than a Glock, better than different pistols. And it's just not true. It's a good quality handgun, but it has some problems. You're watching right now me struggling to connect with these steel plates at about 12 yards to do that. I took the SD40 VE pistol out for many different range trips over an extended period of time, and I worked very hard on becoming proficient and accurate with it. I found that it was very hard to connect with this pistol. Its fit and finish seems very good, but I have a number of things that I dislike about this pistol. And here at the TheGearTester YouTube channel, my goal is to produce quality video reviews on the topics of shooting, camping, and survival gear. And what that means is from time to time, I'm going to produce a negative review about a product. Now, I realize my experience is relatively limited. I'm basing my views and thoughts on the Smith & Wesson SD40 VE on one pistol, but I want to share my experience because I think my experience is not being well represented.
One of the things I'm struggling with is being consistently accurate with this gun. I spent some time with doing some dry fire practice here before I started shooting it, and based on the trigger, okay, I thought this was going to be a pretty accurate gun. It's a very consistent, it has a relatively long trigger pull with the Smith & Wesson trigger that it's got in it, but it is very consistent, and so I thought because of that I would be very accurate with the gun, and that has not proven to be the case. I'm being very inaccurate.
In this next clip, I'm going to compare the recoil of the Glock 17 and 9mm to an SD40 VE. I've slowed the footage down so that you can see it, and it's important to recognize here that the recoil from the SD40 VE is much more significant than from the Glock 17. I fire the Glock 17 6 times in the same amount of time that I fire 3 shots from the SD40 VE.
So, two of the things that I don't like about the Smith & Wesson SD40, first of all, here is the sights. And I think that's one of the reasons I originally had a hard time connecting with this gun on steel plates and paper. This is a polymer back sight, and you can see here that the 2 white dots are actually polymer or paint or something in there. I think they're probably white pieces of polymer that are impregnated into the black portion of the sight. They may also just be painted on, but they're a lot whiter than the front dot is, even though they're both white when you compare them. And so my eye gets directed to that white, so I was having a hard time focusing through that to this. The other thing that I don't like about this gun is the fact that it's chambered in 40. There's just a lot more recoil, as you saw in those comparison between the Glock 17 and this gun. The 40 caliber gun has a lot more recoil. In addition to that, okay, when I go to insert a fresh magazine into this gun, the slide almost always runs forward. Now that's not a problem because I'm already going to run the slide, but it happens every time with this gun. So every time I go to make a fresh mag, the magazine has gone dry. Okay, I've dropped it, and I go to insert a fresh magazine, okay? Now, I didn't do it that time, but almost every time, that's just a frame flexing. Then I go to shoot. You can see there, I'm having to, if you watch my thumb, you see how that thumb's going down? I'm fighting it, okay? When it comes to shooting, and then we're gonna go to another reload here. Boom, and you see every time the frame is flexing and the slide is running forward. If you know that that's what's gonna happen, that's not a problem. And I'm gonna run the slide anyway, but that's something you have to get used to. And maybe I just have a lemon, maybe it's just my Smith & Wesson SD40 VE that does that, but that is something this gun does consistently, and I prefer that that was the exception to the rule rather than the rule. Okay, so I'm gonna come back up and target here. Watch my thumbs. Watch this thumb here on this hand, how much the recoil affects it. My thumb's popping down every time. Okay, there is a lot more recoil. We just had my second malfunction that I've experienced with this firearm. You can see there, I'm just gonna drive it forward. I'm shooting these steel plates at about 7 yards. So I'm having malfunctions with this gun. The recoil is just hellacious compared to 9mm. So if you're gonna get the Smith & Wesson SD40, don't get the 40 version, get the 9mm version. It's a lot, I think it would be a lot better gun because there's gonna be less recoil due to that 40 caliber round. Okay, that's just my opinion. I don't like 40, I prefer 9 or 45. Just me. 40 is a perfectly fine round, but I find that I'm not able to get on target and get multiple shots on target as quickly as I am with a 9. And you really cannot miss fast enough to catch up. Okay? So, another thing, just make sure that it's clear, that I don't like about the SD40, or whatever we did, Smith & Wesson SD40, is the slide release, okay? It is quite large. And what that means is it's kind of, if you see, it's right there. And what I don't like about that is I think it could catch. On the Glocks and other firearms, they tend to be smaller. It's just like a little bent over piece of metal. I don't mind that it's just a crimped piece of metal. But what I do mind, or stamped metal, is that it could really catch a thread or something as you try and draw this firearm out. Hooks on something like if you're carrying it inside the waistband, you go to draw it. You can see there, that should be smaller. And maybe this one has been bent out. Okay, I don't think so. This is the way it came from the factory. I just think that that could be better. That could be a smaller. Now, it's nice to get it. One thing I haven't experienced, but then I'm worried about because of this gun, is that as I'm shooting, that my thumb could right up there and engage the magazine release. The slide release, and basically lock the slide back before I'm finished, which would mean that I'd have to tap, right, reassess. I just think that this gun, particularly chambered in the 40 Smith & Wesson, has a number of problems. It's cheap, it's $300, but I would save your money and I would get yourself another Smith & Wesson offering that's $100 more. The shield would fall into that category, even though it doesn't hold the same number of bullets. I think it's a better firearm. You know, a couple $100 more, you can get a Glock, you get a full-size Smith & Wesson M&P pistol, or one of the compact versions. I just think that the SD40 VE from Smith & Wesson is really not worth your money, and that's my personal opinion.
I experienced a number of malfunctions with the SD40. In each case, those malfunctions centered around the pistol's inability to fully chamber around after I discharged the pistol.
Okay, there is a lot more recoil. We just had my second malfunction that I've experienced with this firearm. You can see there, I'm just gonna drive it forward. I'm shooting these steel plates at about 7 yards. So I'm having malfunctions with this gun.
I wasn't the only one to experience this kind of malfunction. You can see here one of my buddies shooting, and he experienced the same exact thing while shooting the SD40. As this review comes to a conclusion, I'd like to leave you with a couple of quotations, one which is modified from practitioners of warfare over the centuries and over the ages. The first is from Colonel Townsend Welland, whose original statement goes like this: only accurate rifles are interesting. I've modified it here: only accurate pistols are interesting. I find that it is so hard to be consistently accurate with the Smith & Wesson SD40 VE, and that's a problem. The next statement is one from Miyamoto Musashi, and his statement is: weapons should be hardy and not decorative. And I really struggle with the SD40 having those malfunctions that you saw. It doesn't seem that it's as hardy as it could be. And then I just want to leave you here with a statement from me. The SD40 VE appears to me to be an inexpensive, an inaccurate, and an unreliable handgun. And so I think you'd be better off saving your money and purchasing a different firearm. I don't think that the Smith & Wesson SD40 VE is worth the $300 or $350 that you'll end up paying for it.